One. All right, thank you for having me here today. I would like to thank the organizer to take the time on Saturday to provide a space so that we could learn more about my country. While I may be smiling and enjoying speaking with you, I'm bringing you really some words of painful words because I'm from a country that is going through tremendous suffering. I was born and raised in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1981. Yes, I'm a little baby. And as I left the Congo when I was 17 in 1998, 2 years after the war ended. And the reason why I want to speak from the perspective is that story, you will not read that in a newspaper. Because in a newspaper, what you will hear is that rebel forces have taken over a city. You're not going to hear about people's birthday, weddings, funerals, their activities. So as a young person living the Congo, I still miss my little Yorkie that I left home. Yes, I did have a Yorkie. Not only that, I was Catholic when I left the Congo, so I was an altar boy. So I had a lot of friends that I also left behind. I went to school. Still remember my teachers. That all of a sudden, I understood very quickly when I came to this country what U.S. foreign policy is. Because U.S. foreign policy made me a refugee. I never knew what it was before. What I knew was I'm going to grow up in the Congo, finish with high school, go to college, become a lawyer. That was my vision. Then all of a sudden, when I was 17, I have a different path where I have to leave one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Yes, I can say that because I live there and know it. The green of leaves here is not comparable to the green of leaves in the Congo. Very fertile land with all this wealth that I had to leave behind. To come to this country and try to cope with the system here while knowing how beautiful and powerful my country is. So as I lived in this country, I went to school here, went to high school here, went to college here. Sometimes I forgot about home because I got into the system. I start working and I start having friends here. But Congo can never leave me because I always have those phone calls. I always have those emails. That no matter where I go, people behind are still screaming and say, when will the world know, in the age of the internet, of technology, that 6 million people have died? And that's the challenge that we have now, while we have the many issues that we know of. Yet, there is still a blur. Joseph Conrad said it. It's the heart of darkness, right? And there is what? An empire of silence around the situation in the Congo. So he said it 100 years ago when he wrote Heart of Darkness about the Congo. How come 100 years later, when I can tweet to Jay-Z and say, hey, your concert was good, yet people still do not know what is going on in the Congo? So that's the mission that we have with the organization I work with, Friends of the Congo, is to go around this country, educating people around the issues so they know actually what action to take. Because we want people to take action, but we don't want them to take the CONI 2012 action, right? So what we want them to do is to be informed about the issue. That way they will take informed actions and know that it's not just these Africans wantonly killing each other. That somewhere in Washington and in London, there is an implication going on where Congo's neighbors, Rwanda and Uganda, are supporting armed forces with total impunity, with our taxpayers' money. So the latest development in the Congo is that as of last year, it's really disheartening. What is happening in Congo is a cycle. The same thing keeps happening over and over again. In 96, we had an invasion supported by Rwanda and Uganda. In 98, same thing. 2002, they signed a peace accord. 2006, there is another upsurge of violence of rebels supported by Rwanda and Uganda. 2008, another upsurge of violence by Rwanda and Uganda. And now, as of last year, in March of 2012, we had another surge of violence by a rebel group, and they call themselves M23. So as you start studying the Congo, you will get confused. You see many acronyms of many militia groups. You will hear AFDL, you will hear RCD, you will hear CNDP, and now you're hearing M23. So you just think that, man, this is just a bunch of rebels doing the same thing. But they're learning from the best. They're learning from Blackwater. Today, black water is called Z, and you'll never know that it's still black water. So the M23 that you hear about, for those of you researching the Congo now, M23 is nothing but the CNDP. The CNDP is nothing but the RCD. The RCD is nothing but the AFDL. And AFDL first entered the Congo in 1996. So the same rebels, they just changed the name of their rebel force and then present themselves with new demands and saying that we are fighting for democracy, we are fighting for minority groups. And while they're fighting for minority groups, beyond their backs, you see what? Minerals. I didn't know that minerals are minority groups, by the way. But no journalist challenged the narrative of what the rebels say and what they do. So with the surge of violence in March of 2012, it was due to international pressure. In March of 2012, the International Criminal Court had its first conviction of Thomas Lubanga, a Congolese warlord. And he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for enlisting children into the militia group. And as that happened, Luis Moreno Ocampo, the former prosecutor, was so happy, and he felt like he was now he needed to have more arrests. He put pressure on the Congolese government to arrest another warlord who was also wanted. His name is Bosco Tanganda. He was integrated into the Congolese army, and he was a Congolese general. While he was in the Congolese army, he ran a parallel chain of commands. So think about a U.S. soldier with his own operation going on, where if they decide to send him, let's say that from Texas to New York, and he said, no, I'm not going. That's pretty much what Bosco Tangana was doing. He had his own militia, but within the Congolese army. So as the pressure came up, and the word was get him arrested, he found out that he was going to be arrested soon. So he left the Congolese army with 200 of his loyal troops. 200 soldiers start growing to more. 600, then 1,000, and you wonder, how come a group of 200 soldiers becoming 1,000, where are these soldiers coming from? And how come they can have a power, right, a military power to even fight UN forces and the Congolese army? So while they were battling the Congolese army, little by little, the name of Bosco started disappearing from the narrative. That the rebel force said that we are calling ourselves M23, meaning that they are calling themselves after a peace accord signed on March 23rd, 2009, where they integrated them into the Congolese army. And then the journalists, as I say, they keep repeating what the rebels say. It's almost as they are the PR companies of the rebel leaders. So everything that the rebels say, the journalists repeat it. Well, the rebels say that they are fighting because they did not actually meets the agreement from the peace accords. Well, everyone forgot about Bosco. Then as this battle started happening, 1 million people were displaced from the area. Can you imagine 1 million people? How many people live in this area again? About 1 million probably. So think about the whole city disappearing in a matter of months. People were at homes. People were at school. So if you think about this March, the semester is not over yet. Right? That they were displaced from their homes. And then, as this battle is going on, the group of experts is a group of independent auditors that the UN hires, and their mandate comes from a UN report. Every year, they have to write 2 reports on the advance of the UN in the Congo. So as they looked at what was actually happening, they find out that once again, Rwanda was arming, training, equipping rebel forces in the Congo, and also supplying them with new recruits. Some of them were children. So as the report was drafted and submitted to the Security Council, our very own Susan Rice blocked the report at the UN. So the 14 members of the Security Council wonder, why is the United States blocking the report? By the way, she denied it. And the administration also denied that. So some of the council members decided to leak the report to the press. So we had journalists writing already, war was already in closed doors, with evidence, because they had pictures, of delivery of weapons, delivery of military uniforms, tracks of Rwandan soldiers actually aiding the M23 into the battle. They even found out that the M23 had the night vision goggle. That's a very expensive military equipment that a rebel cannot just get. So as the pressure mounted and more journalists started writing around the situation, the United States finally was able to do something that we've been calling for. They withheld aid, but don't be happy about it because they only withheld $200,000. They withheld $200,000 to a Rwandan military academy while we continue to provide Rwanda with $240 million a year of our tax money. So that's our connection to Rwanda, because they are our allies in Africa. I usually argue that Rwanda is the Israel of Africa. They can bomb, kill anyone in the region, and they will never be held accountable at the Security Council. That brings us to the Heritage Foundation formula, Africa. 2002, the Heritage Foundation started speaking about creating a U.S. military command in Africa. People did not take them seriously. But Donald Rumsfeld thought it was a genius idea. So wait a minute, so we have a war in the Middle East. We have a war over in Afghanistan. We have to start looking for independent sources of oil. The best thing that we know we can do is use our military to control oil resources. And some of the oil resources now coming into the US, I don't know if you know, that Africa has now surpassed the Middle East in providing US with oil. Angola, Nigeria, they're providing more oil than the Asian countries now and Middle East countries. So, but knowing that we have a dependence on oil and that we need to create allies, the best way to watch your ally is to have a military base there. So they decided to create a new command center within Africa. When George Bush was in power, he visited African nations, 14 African nations. All of them say no, they don't want a US military base there. They refused to have AFRICOM to be hosted in the country. But as soon as the so-called Son of Africa became president, it was almost as a Trojan horse that allowed the further militarization of the African continent. So now, in the case of the Congo, the Rwandan soldiers are trained by us. They are trained at Fort Leavenworth. They are trained at Fort Bragg. They even train on the ground. They receive weapons from the United States. How do I know that? 5 days before Obama said, I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear. And that was in January of 2009. 5 days before the swearing in of Obama, there was a shipment of weapons from Stuttgart, Germany, to Rwanda, right at the height of a rebellion in the East. And no one called it out. And it was important to know that the shipment of weapons were going on because Sweden and Netherlands took action against Rwanda for supporting rebels that December. They withheld aid to Rwanda. Our response was, let's ship them weapons. But they said the weapons was to be used in Darfur, because we have 3,000 Rwandan troops in Darfur, and the US provide them with the military support. And we're seeing again and again how the Rwandan soldiers are actually training, supporting, and equipping. So if we send shipment to Rwanda, and then rebels in the Congo get sophisticated weapon, where does it come from? According to the UN, it's coming from Rwanda. Knowing that Rwanda gets our weapon is that we are consciously supporting this violence without any accountability. And then the Leahy Amendment comes in. You know, Senator Leahy wrote an amendment about how, as a country, we should not be training any military that's committing human rights abuse. That's not being used when it comes to Rwanda. One thing that you should know, there are top Rwandan officials who have international arrest warrant against them from the Spanish court, the same court that tried Pinochet of Chile. And it's 40 of them. One of them, General Karenzi, was a commander in Sudan in the Darfur mission. We literally had to get Condoleezza Rice and the administration to support his deployment in Sudan while he is under arrest warrants from the Spanish court. So we continue to provide covers even for people who have international arrests against them. And then the drones. Yes, they're coming to the Congo as well. After the two UN reports of last year, the UN saw that the United States was now willing to take action on Rwanda, and they proposed an idea of having surveillance drones to fly over Congo to be able to see what is actually happening at the border. And this is really a bogus analysis of actually the issue. So you have UN experts showing you with evidence who is training, equipping, and supporting rebels, and the response is to have surveillance drones. That's the lack of political will of holding US allies accountable, because a drone will not do a better job than someone who took a photograph of military uniform being sent to the rebel force. So we already have, because there is no political will around holding Rwanda and Uganda accountable, they are coming up with symptomatic solutions, and one will only wonder what happened to a US drone doing work in the Congo and receiving an order to fly over Mali. Does it still fly in the Congo? Who commands those drones? And seeing that the US has accepted and they will be soon being sent to the Congo, and there is no global outcry that this is actually happening in front of everyone. And of course, it further militarize the region. So where are we now, right? It may sound sometimes cynical about what is happening there. You say, where does it start? When does it stop? But what you should know, right? Regardless of what we may learn today, Congolese on a daily basis are fighting to change the country. So I'm clear of that. Congolese women took over the US embassy and did a sit-in there. That was December of 2011. Even if the international media did not cover it, we covered it, and we still have the pictures of those women who took over the US embassy and did their own Occupy movement there, right?